I want to welcome each and every one of you to this live Q&A panel. We are, like I said, officially on day 5 of the Astrology Summit 3.0, Raising Consciousness and Deepening Your Spiritual Path. And today we are so thrilled to have 3 panelists with us. We have Nadiya Shah, whose talk that was released today is entitled Astrology and Synchronicity, Aligning with the Rhythms of the Universe. We also have Ron Baker talking about using astrology for practical and proactive fulfillment, and DiCara, Life Lessons from the Vedic Stars. So we have these 3 amazing panelists here ready and willing to answer your questions. And what I would love to do before we get started, we were talking behind the scenes before we went live, and I asked Nadiya and Vic and Ron and Stephanie, our A-Team Angel, who's supporting the broadcast. I asked if it was just me or if everyone is experiencing a certain level of tension or electricity. It was amazing. This morning I was making my girls' lunches and I looked out the window and there was this huge bolt of lightning in the sky. And I was like, whoa, it was just so shocking and amazing and beautiful. But I feel like that electricity has been very current for so many people. And so they all confirmed that it wasn't just me, that it definitely is in the collective, and the astrology speaks to it beautifully. And maybe they'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I would like to do is start with a little bit of grounding so that we all can be here fully present to receive the gifts of this broadcast. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, I invite you to do so now. And if you can just get comfortable where you are and just begin to tune into your breath, just feeling that natural inflow and outflow. And tuning into your heart. Taking a moment to leave behind everything that has happened in your day up until this point. And leave your thoughts about anything that you need to do after, and just come here fully present in this moment. Knowing that in this present moment is where all of the gifts are. And we can pick up all those worries and concerns and any anxieties or anything that's happening after the broadcast. But for now, just give yourself this gift. You've made the effort to be here. And so just allow yourself to be here. If that means eliminating distractions in your environment, if that means turning off Messenger or your phone or anything, I just invite you to do that now. And taking a moment to tune into the energy of gratitude. Gratitude for these amazing souls who are here, sharing their perspective so courageously and generously. Gratitude for our growing tribe and community and the space that we hold together. One of hope, one of beauty, one of love. And gratitude for this life, for this incarnation, for this opportunity to be here. Even gratitude for any of the tension or anxiety or anything that's happening in your life that might feel uncomfortable. Just knowing that all of it has gifts. And all of it carries opportunity. I would love, as a community, if we could just take a moment to breathe one really deep breath together, feeling our interconnectivity all over the globe. So go ahead and exhale your breath. And breathe in nice and deep and long and slow here. And release. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Thank you very much. I know that that will all put us in a much more receptive place to receive the many, many gifts from our speakers today. So I'm going to just say one quote from each of the speakers that I loved from their talks. If you haven't had a chance to tune into the talks yet, I highly encourage you to do so. One thing that Nadiya said is, awakening and higher consciousness are the ability to observe yourself. It just represents choice and being who it is that you authentically are. So again, this whole entire event is around consciousness and your spiritual path. So I loved that explanation of what that actually is from Nadiya. Ron says, we have to have a way to get to know self and nurture self so that we are not defending it, but we are receiving the energies and working with the energies and expanding more and more into our potential, right? Perfectly suited for today's energy. Thank you so much, Ron. And Vic, one of my favorite quotes from you is very simple and straightforward, but just so helpful. Knowledge is the most important thing to act on. All right, so there will be a lot more coming from this talk today. Let's dive in. I would like now to give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves. So just briefly, if you can just tell us who you are and a little bit about you, that would be fantastic. Let's start with you, Ron.
Cool. I am grateful for the opportunity to be here and to speak to all of you. And I will just start with the reason I initially reached out to Amanda after getting to know Astrology Hub and meeting her is I said, I'd love to throw myself into the mix, even though I'm not a professional astrologer. I love astrology, but it seems to me that with all of this gorgeous knowledge that these astrologers are bringing to us from so many different perspectives here, we all also need a clear set of tools for responding and resolving the shifts and the push and pull that these planetary movements are creating inside us. And so what I do is I have a school of self-mastery where I focus on two primary things. One is to create a clear map that there are three distinct levels of self that we have the potential to integrate. If we learn how to nurture and get to know self, just like Nadiya was also sharing in her quote. So a clear map with tools for moving through those stages, even into the greatness of our soul potential. That's one focus. And the other is helping to educate people about what's happening on the planet and why we're in this unprecedented acceleration. Just in the last 30 years, expanding more in consciousness overall than we have in 3,000 years. Understanding what's happening, why that's happening, and the fact that all these outer shifts that we can see are also attempting to take place inside us. So those are the two focuses, and happy to share whatever it ends up serving.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ron. I'm so glad that we had that synchronistic, speaking to Nadiya's talk, opportunity to meet each other. So, and you've been such a consistent and well-received presence at Astrology Hub ever since the first time that we were able to feature your work. So it's great to have you here. Nadiya, how about you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Nadiya. I'm an astrologer. I'm really grateful to be here today among some amazing people sharing just our journey, right? It's just really about just sharing how it is that I am trying to move towards what I call greater love and greater wisdom. And I'm really grateful that there are people who trust me and who are along for that journey with me, as I believe that that is what we are meant to do in this lifetime, is to more fully embody greater love and greater wisdom. I've been a fan of Amanda for a while. I've been watching her from afar as she's built Astrology Hub into this incredible community. And it's just been such a privilege to be part of it. So thank you.
We are so privileged to have you here, Nadiya. I can't believe it's taken this long. So glad you're here now. All right, and Vic DiCara.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really able to listen to anybody else's introduction because my mind was so loud trying to figure out how I was going to introduce myself. And then I just thought, you know, I'm just kind of like a regular open. Actually, I think I'm uncommonly open. So you probably don't need me to introduce myself. You'll just get to know like who I am while you talk to me. But, I'm an astrologer. What else am I? I don't know. I'm a bunch of other things. I've been a bunch of other things. I do a lot of things at the same time, and I kind of bring it all together to make an interesting potion.
Yes, you do. One of the things I love the most about you is the way that you have so elegantly bridged the gap between Vedic and Western astrology, and how you help people really resolve the conflict that is the perceived conflict. I think you have a very amazing gift at doing that. So,
Thank you.
And a lot of people have already been listening to all three of your talks, and there's some things in the chat already about, some feedback already about the talks that you've given. So let's dive into the questions. All right, so we've had some great questions come in already. And all right, so Nadiya, this first question's for you. It's from an Inner Circle member. For those of you that are not aware of what the Inner Circle is, it is Astrology Hub's membership program. If you're interested in learning more about that, we'll put a link in the chat. And Inner Circle members are getting priority access to ask questions. So I'm starting with a question from Joe. He asks, Nadiya, can you comment on synchronicity and manifesting going hand in hand?
Well, I think that there's two parts of manifestation, right? I think that it's a very sacred part of being a human being for us to have a goal and see it through, for us to believe in our potential. This is basically free will. It's another way to use free will to understand it, not just in terms of our action, but also in terms of our spiritual energy and how we are directing our spiritual and emotional energy. But I think at the same time that very often we don't realize that what we conceive of as so big, as such a grand thing for us to achieve, and it's a huge ask of the universe, is actually very small in comparison to what could be a higher, more loving vision for our lives. And so I think that there's actually two parts of manifestation. One is, of course, to believe in yourself and to direct your energy, but the other layer of that has to do with self-knowledge, and to become aware of where it is that maybe there's resistance, whether that's within you or in your world, and to honor that as well, to understand that either that's a growth opportunity for you to transcend through, or it's your intuition telling you that maybe the path you think you're on, and you're so convinced this is your path, there could be something even better for you if you would just allow it, if you would allow yourself to align with it. And so I actually see it as twofold. I think that we as human beings, yes, we are immense and we are glorious and we are an expression of the divine, and that makes us truly beautiful. But at the same time, we don't always appreciate the value and the spirituality and how much humility goes into actually manifestation. And so keeping ourselves in the right perspective, I think, can help immensely. But I'm all about a dream. Have a dream, that's great, see it through. But in my journey, as part of my path, I have found that the best things that have ever happened, they just kind of show up. And I think if you know your chart and if you learn about your chart, that's going to go a really long way to let you know where is it that surrender is asked for, and where is it that greater ownership and direction on your part is being asked for, whether that's natally or a particular transit at a particular time.
Love that. There's a lot there that we could discuss. I don't know if Ron or Vic want to address that question at all.
I would love to jump in a little bit.
Okay.
Just as I said that there are three distinct levels of potential, let's just call them the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, and the superconscious or soul connection. Most of the time people think of a conscious intention, I want to manifest this opportunity. And sometimes it's such a clear thing that aligns that life responding creates a synchronicity of support. Then we have the subconscious, which is where we hold all of our wounding, just to keep it simple. Sometimes life is trying to show us what's held there in the subconscious, so we have a chance to bring it into the light of day to respond. And so we can have synchronicities that trigger that to the surface. And then sometimes, just as Nadiya just said, our souls can have an awareness that even though we think this is the direction we need to go, the soul knows that if we just make a slight turn and we can have a synchronicity that encourages that turn, then we'll get more aligned with our most authentic self. So all three, I think, are happening.
So it's not as black and white as people might hope that it would be.
The clearer we get, the clearer the manifestations from the conscious mind. So it's an encouragement to get to know self so that it can become more neutral.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm Vic, I don't know if you wanted to address that or if I could move on to the next question for you.
Sounds great. It's like a cake that's perfectly baked. I don't think I need to add anything on top. I'll just throw some sprinkles.
Perfect. All right, great. Okay, Michelle says, my nakshatras make me feel like my sole purpose is to pay a huge karmic debt. How do I embrace this?
Well, what are those nakshatras? Can we talk to these people in real time? Or?
It depends. It depends. Maybe. If they're here, if you have a question for Michelle, just ask it.
Yeah, like what are they? Let me see if I agree. First, if you were a client, I would say, let me see if I agree that you should feel that way, that you have a huge karmic debt to pay.
Well,
and then
someone where that is the truth, where that's what it's pointing to.
It feels great to go to the bathroom. That's what I would say. Like, it feels great, right? To get rid of things that are garbage that you need to get rid of. So that's just as good of a life as a life where you're due to get karmic rewards. As long as you just keep the right attitude about who you are. Like, and this goes with what Nadiya was saying. Like, it's not like you always need to force your view on the universe of what you want to happen. You need to be receptive to the universe. That's your position. That's our position as a little tiny Atma, as a little tiny self, is to be receptive to the Paramatma, the big self. So this is your job in this life, is to repay some karmic debt. Cool. That's like having a really good poop. It feels great. You get rid of a lot of junk and then you feel good for the rest of the day. So congratulations. But now embrace it, embrace it and do it, and just find out how to do it nicely.
Does Nadiya or Ron want it? Nadiya does.
Well, yeah, I was thinking that in addition to what Vic just said, like to do it nicely, doesn't mean you can't enjoy the journey, right? It doesn't mean that you can't also enjoy the fact that you want to resolve many lifetimes in this lifetime. Because I do believe that we are older souls than ever before. And I think that's why, like, if you think about it, not that long ago, your life was pretty much written for you, right? Whatever family you were born into, they kind of decided everything for you. You had the same job that your parents did. If you were female, you knew that you were going to get married at 14 and you were going to have babies as long as you could. Like, it was just very limited. And so what it was that would take us 100 lifetimes to resolve in the past, now we're packing in so many lifetimes into one that we don't necessarily need to indulge in certain things as much. And what I mean by that is, you look at our lives now, they say that most people will have at least 4 careers at different points in their life. We have normally, not always, but normally we'll have more than one major relationship in our lives. And we do live in a time where it may not always be perfect, but we are more free than ever before to truly trust ourselves and to truly go with where it is that we feel is our authentic expression for ourselves and what it means to live authentically. We can honor that in a way that we just couldn't that much longer ago. And when you are honoring yourself, it means that you're going to change and you're going to grow. And so I would invite this person to also consider, like, when you use words like karmic debt, it ends up sounding kind of heavy, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. It ends up sounding like a burden, or that you think you did a lot of wrong things in a previous life. And so now you feel like you need to, you need to do something about that. Because at the end of the day, whether you're enjoying yourself or not, whether you're at peace with yourself or not, you're going to find ways to fulfill your karmic debts. Like, it's just going to happen as part of your existence. And so in the meantime, and on that journey, maybe part of the work is self-acceptance. And that is part of being at peace with yourself.
Okay, very good. So Vic, we did send some placements. Does that help you at all?
Honestly, no, because if it was really about, because what you said was Saturn retrograde with Rahu in the third house, Scorpio, but the question was about nakshatras, so I didn't hear anything about nakshatras in there. The nice thing about nakshatras is it's very easy to use them like a deck of cards. Like you don't have to ask like, well, this is the Lord of what and what's the dignity and all that. It's very easy to just, but the difficult thing about horoscopic astrology is now you tell me about the third house Rahu Saturn, I got to think about, I would rather see this whole chart. If I'm going to agree with somebody that they actually have a huge karmic debt, then that's not something to take lightly. I want to see this whole chart. So what I was thinking is, I want to, with nakshatras, the way you usually see when there's problems, like difficulties, challenges in your life, is when you have clashes of the themes. Like you have a planet that represents like being tough and a nakshatra that represents being gentle. Or you have your moon nakshatra is real gentle, but your ascending nakshatra is really hard. Those kinds of clashes, and you'll see like, here's your challenge. Here's where Yamaraj, the Lord of Karma, is telling you, here's your debt, pay it off. So it's kind of easy to do with nakshatras, but not so with the whole house system thing. So sorry. Excuse me.
No, that's fair enough. That's good. It is a really big deal for someone to feel like their entire life is about paying off karmic debt, and you don't want to take that lightly. So thank you for that. All right. So Ilona asked Ron. Ron told about these incredible life-threatening events and how they were created by his own beliefs and fears. What can we do about that? So I think the question is, if we feel like we have our own fearful thoughts and we're creating some sort of reality that we don't want, how do we change that?
I love that we're in a constant dance with life itself, whether you want to call that the God mind, universe, with life itself, the movement of the energies. As we said earlier, life is responding in synchronicities to all three parts of ourself. And just as we just talked about karma, for me, that just equals a lesson that I've set in motion that's not resolved yet. Whether I continue it from another lifetime or whether I've set something in motion in this lifetime that needs to be resolved. For me, to get to this question specifically, what I discovered was life needed to show me a really deep fear that I had, which was based on my early life, that if I allow myself to move out and to shine and to champion myself in the world, that I won't be loved, that I'll be resented, and that I'll also somehow be depriving others, which was my big wound to begin with. And so as I, conscious mind, chose to move out to bring all of this message of healing into the world, it triggered my subconscious on some levels that I hadn't realized were there. And this was a very deep fear. And each of the events that I manifested were with a car, all about movement. And how many things could I slam into? None of them were another car. None of them involved another person that I was interacting with. It was literally things in the road. For instance, turning a corner, and there were 3 full propane tanks in the middle of the road, and I slammed into them at 45 miles an hour. I dragged one of them for 50 yards, and it did not blow up. Thank goodness, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. These are extreme manifestations. They're the most extreme that I've ever had in my lifetime, but there were literally 14 events that occurred in about a 9-month period. And it took me a lot of delving and facing feelings and resolving to finally understand that my whole paradigm of survival was triggered by this deepest core fear. Fortunately, I've been doing tons of nurturing, dealing with feelings over the years, so I was ready to face how this had been imprinted in my cells. And once I realized it and championed my inner child and got those last feelings out, it cleared. I haven't had a single manifestation since I got clear. I neutralized it. I moved into alignment. I don't need the lesson anymore. So you might even consider I was resolving some karmic issues and needed the synchronicity of that reflection. So hopefully that makes it a little clearer.
If you were to give a start here to this person.
Absolutely. Fear, in my opinion, comes from learned behavior where we did not feel nurtured and safe in our early years. And so we learn to fear certain experiences. If we can now go back to that soul curriculum for the lifetime where we've learned to hold fear, shame, and judgment, and we just start out by learning to nurture self and create a safe space for self with proactive breathing, with going inside to get in touch with the inner child, with learning how to reconnect to our feelings, how to first identify them, then to nurture them, then to express and release them. Each of these things is an important layer, but it all starts with learning to nurture self and provide the nurturing we wish mommy and daddy had known how to give us when we were young, where we developed the fear. As we provide that for ourselves, we resolve the fear.
Thank you. Nadiya or Vic, do you want to take that one? Nadiya.
I agreed with what Ron said. I thought that that was right on, because it was coming to mind, like if someone feels like their life is about karmic debt, then it might be a good idea to consider like where it is that that belief comes from, because that is ultimately a belief. Yes, we do owe everyone, we owe others. We could say that, right? Because we're part of this larger tapestry, this larger dance. And it is always, for every one of us, we are here because someone else sacrificed for us. One of our ancestors or many ancestors, but at some point along the way, yes, there were sacrifices made so that we could be who we are today. But when you start talking about karmic debt, there's an undercurrent there, a subconscious affirmation there of perhaps some guilt. And it may be a good idea to look at that and to heal that. Because once you heal that at a deeper level, then you'll, like I said, you'll still be resolving what you need to. You'll still be walking your path, but it won't feel as much like an obligation because you've resolved the guilt already.
Okay, fantastic. All right, question for you, Nadiya. What part of the chart and or planets do you look at to reveal the path of synchronicity?
So there's a few ways to understand synchronicity, just on a very literal level, like when we look at synchronistic moments, and you want to look at the third house, you want to look at Mercury, because I think that it is the third house that has this very quickness to it and this idea of making mind level connections to our random events and the little things that are happening outside of us. However, taking the whole chart as a whole, there are so many opportunities there for synchronicity. Remember, at the end of the day, synchronicity, well, it was a phrase coined by Carl Jung. And Carl Jung stated it as a meaningful coincidence or a meaningful chance. And so something is happening in your life right now, or you're having an experience, or you're meeting a particular person, and it in some way connects to something else that seems unrelated on the surface, but there's a soul level connection that is playing out there. That is ultimately synchronicity. And so Carl Jung believed that an astrology reading was a moment of synchronicity, because you go to this astrologer, and if they are in the zone, what I call a realized reading, I don't call it that, Jeffrey Cornelius calls it that, but they're in the zone of a realized reading, and they speak truth to your experience and to your life right now in that moment of a reading. Well, that is a moment of synchronicity, ultimately, because they are speaking something that is relevant to you in other elements of your life beyond that sacred space of a reading. And I think that horoscopes work like that as well, whether they're in newspapers or on YouTube. They work kind of the same way. Ultimately, they are omens, and they in some way are speaking to your life and your lived experience. And so when you look at like how to further magnify synchronicity in your life, it just really comes down to awareness. It is really that simple. The desire to be more aware can go a really long way. But I do believe that everything in our lives ultimately is about moving us towards greater awareness. Because when we are aware, we're able to choose the type of people that we want to be, and we're able to choose to embody love and wisdom, even when it's hard, and even when we've been through pain. And some of us have gone through really, really unfathomable experiences, and yet can come out of it, or on the other side of it, are more loving and more wise than we ever were before. So ultimately, I do think that awareness goes a really long way, and making the decision that you are going to have an interactive experience as you move through your life.
Very nice. Thank you, Nadiya. We have an Inner Circle member requesting sun, moon, and rising from each of you. So Ron, do you mind starting with your sun, moon, and rising?
My sun is Libra. My moon is Virgo. And my ascendant is Sagittarius.
Great. Thank you. Vic?
I wish I could talk to them because I always make them try to guess first. It's way more fun that way.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want
to yeah.
And then we'll go to Nadiya first.
Okay.
All right.
I have an Aquarius sun and a Sag moon and a Cancer rising.
Okay.
Can you see it? Can you tell?
I like the Cancer rising. Cancer rising is nice.
Yeah. Earlier we were talking as a group, we were talking about, this idea of ensuring safety. And when you are a spiritual person, you have to, and I do believe one of the things I've had to learn is to understand my sensitivity as a gift, and to understand it that I have a responsibility to protect this part of me that ultimately is part of what I have to give in this lifetime. And I think a Cancer rising helps me to do that, certainly. But then, of course, I have that Aquarius sun and that Sag moon that's just like, I don't care about anything. I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to do everything. So it's an interesting combination, but I see the perfection in it, of course.
Nadiya, everybody's, I don't know if you heard the invitation to guess Vic's sun, moon, and rising, but please put it in the chat. Nadiya, how do you protect that sensitivity? How do you protect I love the way you said it. You have a responsibility to protect it because it's part of your gift. How do you do that?
Well, I think everybody is going to be different, right? They're all going to have their own way as part of protecting their sensitivity. That can be an energetic thing. That can be a physical thing, like realizing what people you want to be around and whom you don't, what environments are healthy for you to be in and what environments you don't. And so there are these practical implications, of course, like what you're going to expose yourself to in terms of information as well, what emotional states you're going to dwell in. But then there is, a more spiritual component to it, which really has to do with, I think the one thing I've really been realizing, especially this year, profoundly so, is that the only thing that really matters is being at peace with yourself. Being at peace with yourself and your choices. Whatever was, it's fine, it's the past. And whatever's going to be, it's okay. But instead of chasing something or thinking that we should be something, having impossible standards, or even if they are possible standards, at the end of the day, there's a level of effectiveness we're able to have when we truly accept ourselves as we are, and when we truly are at peace with ourselves. And I think that part of protecting that sensitivity, it just really comes down to that, is being at peace with yourself, knowing that you can give yourself the approval or the love that you need. And of course, that doesn't mean to close yourself off. Enjoy the love and the company and the friendship of others. It's part of the human experience. At the same time, understand for you, uniquely for you, what it is you need to be at peace and pursue that. I happen to think that peace comes, among other things, it comes as a result of honoring your moon sign. I think that the moon is at the root of being at peace with yourself. It has to do with emotional equilibrium. It has to do with truly feeling comfortable with yourself and feeling comfortable in the world. And so if someone was, wanting to understand protecting themselves, I would say, go to your moon. That was the first thing I would say to them. Go to your moon, pay attention to the area of life the house is in, and cultivate the characteristics of the sign of your moon.
Can I
Thank
say
you so
something?
much. Wait, Vic, one sec.
Yeah.
I want to, because there's other guesses that you're probably not seeing because they're
Oh, yeah,
coming.
let me see.
Okay, so we have Sun Leo, Moon Scorpio, Rising Libra, and then we have lots of people guessing Scorpio. Then we have a Leo Sun, Virgo Moon, Sag Rising. Gary says Vic has some Scorpio. Sylvia says Vic, Scorpio Rising, and Alexander says Scorpio in there for sure. So,
Gosh, Scorpio, really? Well, Nadiya, so you said you have Cancer ascending, Sagittarius moon, and Aquarius sun,
Yes.
right? So with the whole sign system, you're actually kind of the same blueprint as me.
Oh, wow. That's great.
In the sense that your moon would be in the 6th sign from your ascendant, and your sun is in the 8th from your ascendant. That's the same as me. So now if you guess my ascendant, then you'll know where my moon is and my sun is. So if you just look at the shape of my face.
I was thinking Capricorn.
It's Capricorn, so you got it.
Okay.
So it's a Capricorn ascendant, so the moon is in Gemini in the 6th house. Is that where I need to go to protect my space? Totally. That's where I totally feel happy when I get stuff done. I just enjoy getting stuff done, especially with the Capricorn ascendant. But I just like doing the chores, making sure the chores are done. I don't need to have parties. I don't need 100 friends. I'm just happy. Talk to my wife, talk to my kids, have a couple of friends. It's fine. It's really like that's my little space. And it's Gemini, so it's like I need to write. I need to express ideas. And then sun is in Leo, and I think sun in the 8th house is great for understanding psychology, understanding astrology, stuff like that.
How have you experienced your 8th house sun, besides just understanding the psychology part? What other benefits have you noticed, or what other attributes have you noticed as a result of having an 8th house sun?
Maybe that's why people think it's Scorpio, right? Because it's the eighth house, 8th sign. Also, it's pretty good for things that we shouldn't talk about in public. And then also, I also have I have Mars over there, and it's in Leo. So that's an interesting thing too. It's going to be, what do I have? I have Mars over there, and I have Mercury over there. So I think it's the combination between Mercury and Mars is the Dharma Karma Adhipati Yoga, which is like a very important yoga in Vedic astrology. This is like here's where you get tons of energy. So it's like the planet in its own house, and then it's Mars in a fire sign, and then it's the Adhipati Yoga with Mercury, the figure outer. So it's like I can easily figure out mystical things, secrets. Good, like with just reading things that go on beneath the surface. I don't really even see the surface of things. I see what's going on underneath, and I like it a lot. But then again, all my whatever fame or career or success or all that stuff. One thing to take about that 8th house is it's all niche, super niche. It will never be like, I'll never be Deepak Chopra or something. It's always good, but there's people like I can really help a lot of people. People really appreciate it, but it's going to be limited to say 50 people, but they'll be totally into it. That's another thing.
What about you, Ron? Do you know what houses your planets and
I do,
sign?
yeah.
Yeah.
My Libra sun is in my 10th house, which is the career house, kind of opposite from what was just shared. And I had an initial career performing Broadway and opera all over the world. So that was the first, and it gave me a world education through my career. And so the sun bringing tons of consciousness in that way. My Virgo is in my 9th house with Pluto and the North Node. And so it's a deep dive of wanting to understand life, which is what has driven me tons throughout my life, maybe more than any other thing. And then my ascendant being in Sagittarius with Jupiter right there in the 1st house has given me a kind of wonder and passion for understanding self. And that included wanting to understand other people. So that's just a few of the ways that I've been impacted by those locations.
Brilliant. Nadiya, thank you. I love how you're asking their questions. It's great. Okay, so Vic, from an IC member, Mari, she says, in your studies, have you considered the teachings of Bu Mandala in the Vedic cosmological texts, which is a description of the Earth on our flat plane?
Yeah, totally, because there's a lot of flat earther people out there. And then when you get into astrology circles, you get into the whole alternative scene. So you get contact with a lot of people that are into astrology or also into conspiracy theories and other things and flat earth and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely I've thought about it a lot. A lot of people complain that the Vedas have, a lot of people complain? No. Contend that the Vedas have a flat earth paradigm, but it's just because they don't understand Sanskrit very well and they haven't really read the Vedas. Mandala doesn't mean that it's flat. Mandala means a group, circular thing. It doesn't mean that doesn't mean plate. It's also called a gum, which means a globe. And also just the thing about the Vedas and cosmology is they're not telling you about the stuff that you see with the telescope. When they talk about cosmology, they're talking about realms and layers of consciousness and how it pertains to and is symbolized by physical elements in the sky, which is the same thing we work with in astrology. So, yeah, Bhu Mandala. The interesting part about it is the mandala or the circle is the wheel of the houses. You know, in the very famous Gayatri mantra, the bija, the seed words are Bhu, Bhuva, and Swa. And if you open that up in an astrological context, you'll see it means houses, signs, and stars. Bhu is the houses. The houses are anchored to the horizon of the earth. That's what the earth is in astrology. It's the houses. And Bhuva is a little bit above the Bhu. It's a little bit above the earth. That's where the sun moves around and the planets follow it, right? So that's where it's the sun's interaction with the moon that makes the sign. So that's the whole zodiac belt, which is where what the planets occupy. Then deeper than that is Swarga or Swa, deep space, the heavens. That's where the nakshatras are. That's what the free course that I'm giving as a bonus. It's going to be about how those deep stars, the fixed stars, the lunar mansions, the nakshatras are different from the signs. They're on a different wheel. They're in a different plane of space. They're in a different mandala. And they actually change their relationship to each other. They're not permanently fixed to each other. One of them is sidereal and the other one is tropical, tropically fixed. So yeah, I do believe in Australia and the South Pole.
Thank you, Vic.
Okay.
All right. For you, Nadiya, Christy wants to know, in your talk, you talked about the practice of mirroring as a tool in one's personal growth process. Can you elaborate on the concept and importance of this, of practicing the mirroring?
I talked about mirroring. I'm trying to remember. I think I meant that in the context of understanding how your life is in some way mirroring something back to you, and also in terms of our relationships and love. You know, as I like to say, it is love that allows ourselves to see ourselves differently as reflected in the eyes of another. But it's really about perception at the same time, right? That reflection, how are you interpreting that? And so it isn't just about what your life and your world is telling you about where you are in terms of your state of consciousness, in terms of what you believe about yourself, but it's also about how you interpret it. So I'll give you an example. I didn't know I was going to talk about this. I'll just touch on it a little bit. Many years ago, many moons ago, I've been a full-time astrologer now for 12 years. And before I went into astrology full-time, years before then, I worked in a particular organization. And my boss was very abusive. She was, I mean, now I can have a lot of compassion for her. I understand more about what was happening in her chart. She was going through Pluto opposite her son, and her father had died, and she hadn't really dealt with that pain. And so she was very angry and very abusive to the people around her. And I remember when I left that job, like I decided I wasn't going to continue that work, and my contract was finished. I said, I'm leaving as soon as this contract is over. And I remember when I left and I said to myself, I am never going to allow anybody to speak to me that way again. It will just never happen. And so there's a few layers there when we look at mirroring. It's very possible that there was some part of me that believed I deserved that, and so I attracted that situation. But then it's also very possible that I would not have truly embraced my own power to determine the type of people I'm going to have in my life, and the conviction to ensure that I only have people who are kind and loving and respectful in my life, and that's it. I wouldn't have understood the importance of that if it wasn't for attracting that experience into my life. And I'll tell you, when I finished university, I had a hard time, hell of a time, I was going to say. I don't know if that's a swear word. I hope not. But I had such a time trying to find a job. And I was, applying like crazy, trying to get a job, and it just wasn't coming together. And I remember it was during that time that I really connected to this conviction that I had to do my own thing. It was worth the sacrifice. It was worth the time. It was worth the poverty at the time, so that I could trust my own vision and ensure at the same time that I only allowed loving people into my sphere. And so that motivation wouldn't have been there had I not attracted that experience. And so it isn't just that what she was mirroring to me. I could look at that and I could be a victim all over again. I could say like, oh, I didn't love myself, so I had this person like that. But I could also look at it, the mirror, the empowering thing about it is because I had that experience, I connected to a source of self-respect that I would never have been able to had I not had that experience. And that too is a mirror. That too allowed me to see myself more clearly and to realize, no, you know what? I actually do have self-esteem. I do have self-love. I do have self-value. Before then, I didn't realize that. I thought I was someone with low self-esteem. But my conviction to not live that again is a supreme act of self-love that directly contradicted that part of me that believed I didn't have self-esteem. So it isn't just about what your life is reflecting to you, but it's also how you interpret it. And my hope with my work and everything I do is always that to encourage people to interpret it in a way that moves you towards greater wisdom, that makes you a more loving person. Now, I'm not saying be a doormat or accept what somebody else is doing if it's wrong, but I am saying that we can choose to interpret things and we can choose to look in that mirror so that ultimately it affirms the highest qualities within us.
Beautiful. Ron, I knew you would want to add to this.
Yeah, I love what you just shared, Nadiya, and I think that it ties together a couple of themes that seem to be wanting to emerge in this talk this evening. One is the importance of championing self and getting to know self and nurture self, and the other is how self interacts with life through synchronicity. And this was a beautiful synchronicity of this person coming along, which awakened a choice. And we always have a choice of, what does that reveal to me about me? And who do I choose to be? How do I take that and turn it into a gift just by who I choose to be for myself? Do I want to make an adjustment? Do I want to deepen something? Does it affirm something I love? Or does it help me set a boundary about what is no longer acceptable to me? In addition, in case the person who asked the question did want some feedback about mirroring exercise, which would be looking into a mirror, in case that helps anyone, in order to get to know self, we get encouraged to look inward this way. But for some people, that seems too remote to begin with. And we can find out many clues by looking deeply at ourselves and pay attention to, what does that bring up for me? What feelings come up for me? Do I look at myself and immediately go into critical mind? Oh, if only my pointy ear weren't there, if only whatever. Critical, well, that's revealing something I hold inside. Any clues that give us awareness of what we need to go in and nurture, and of course we need tools to know how to nurture, all of which is possible and available on this panel. It gives us clues, and then we also might be surprised at how we can look deep inside ourselves and see a depth of self we've never taken the time to discover or acknowledge. And so to purposefully look deep in your eyes, and what do you perceive is there? And I encourage anyone who does this to purposefully choose, let me accept and nurture whatever I discover. This is a huge clue. We always try to get rid of the wound. Why don't we embrace the wound? It is all there to serve us. So if I can look at the unresolved lessons we've spoken about, even ones about myself, and we can hold a space that at least puts it in the light of day, then we're prepared to go in and nurture it. If we aren't even willing to look at ourselves, then we create a separation that doesn't even allow healing to become possible. So those are a few thoughts about mirroring.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, so this is a question for any of you. From Lisa, do any of you incorporate or think it's important to look at ancestral piece in the chart? Vic, do you want to answer that?
I need to know what that means. I don't know what ancestral piece means. Do you? Does anybody?
I think it might mean like, where is it that we carry legacies? I'm thinking in terms of the chart, I'm thinking that sometimes Saturn can represent that. But I also think that some people are more connected to their past and understanding their ancestry than others. And someone with a lot of Cancerian themes in their chart might be more inclined to consider their ancestry and how they carry that into this moment.
Then there's one nakshatra also, which is Pitri nakshatra, right? It's the Magha nakshatra. So Pitri means paters, fathers. But typically, the interpretations for that nakshatra typically have to do with inherited things. So that might have to do with ancestor stuff. And then also, I would say there's a particular, what we call Varga chart, where you split signs into segments and then you amalgamate those splits. So there's a particular Varga called the 12th. I guess it's like a 12th harmonic, not that I know what harmonics are, but I think it's the 12th harmonic, which is particularly about parents and ancestry and stuff. So you can go look at the 12th subdivision if you have that kind of software or something where you could see a 12th subdivision chart. And then, hey, why not look at sun for dad issues, and why not look at moon for mom issues? I mean, it's pretty basic, simple stuff. It might get overlooked.
I would also add the cadent houses. I love that Vic is coming from that Vedic perspective. I'm coming more from a Western perspective. And when we look at the cadent houses, which is the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th, there is that sense of legacy and of healing and understanding the energy that you are bringing and where you've been, and cleansing and closure. So these are some themes that can arise. Intuition as well, strongly linked to cadent houses. So if you're looking to understand ancestry and how you are continuing that legacy in this life, the cadent houses can also be a good place to look.
What I would add to this, if you don't mind, is if they're talking about ancestry of family lineage, I would just say on an emotional level, families or soul grids of people that are born into a family line tend to have a similar set of lessons that they're looking at. And so to trust that this does have an impact and it supports the setup of your soul curriculum of a lifetime. I could name some of my particular family's history, but the bottom line is this serves your individual soul to come in with free will choice to respond and nurture and learn how to take whatever's unresolved in the lessons so that you learn and turn it into gifts. If they're referring to past life ancestry, just in case, I believe, because a lot of my clients know that I can tune in and feel and get glimpses of someone's soul grid. And I will often say to the person, rather than getting distracted by past lives, which is often used to justify something you're going through in this lifetime, you don't need to justify it. Know that if it's important from your past life history, it is active in this life. And this is the place of power to respond and nurture it. So in case either of those perspectives help, that's what I would add to that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, you guys. Okay, so we have a couple questions from people that are new to astrology, which actually makes me so happy that you have somehow joined this event and found us. Wendy says, I have never had my chart read. In fact, I didn't even know what it looked like until this week. Ideas have been flying into my head for the last couple of months, and it's suddenly occurred to me that I should know this map of myself. Can you direct me to interpret it? And Wendy, I just wanted to address that. We are actually launching the second round of our course for people that want to learn how to read their own chart. It's starting in October, and it's taught by Donna Woodwell, who was on the panel yesterday. So it's actually open for registration now if you want to check it out and see if you might be ready to join that. But it is absolutely a map of yourself, and learning to read that map would be the most empowering thing for you to do. And then Steffi asks, can astrologers see in a chart when it is difficult for a person? Oh, can astrologers see in a chart when it is a difficult time for a person? Does it help to get a personalized reading when going through a difficult time? I'm going to let the panel address that too, but Steffi, what I just wanted to say in response to that is my first astrology reading, and I happened at a very difficult time in my life, and I would say that reading is responsible for the existence of Astrology Hub and the existence of this entire event, and that it was a lifeline for me when I was going through a really difficult time in my life. So if you are going through a challenging time, getting a reading from an astrologer, a good astrologer, can be extraordinarily helpful. Any of the astrologers that we've featured as part of this event would be amazing choices for you. So if there's someone who's been speaking and they really resonate with you, most of them give readings, so you can look at their websites and contact them for a reading. Does anyone else want to say anything to Steffi or Wendy?
Well, I think that one of the things I've seen so much, I remember for years, I lived in downtown Toronto for 10 years, and I did a whole lot of readings at my kitchen table, especially in the early years of my career as a full-time astrologer. And there is nothing like a Pluto transit that will bring someone to an astrologer. I mean, I saw it again and again and again. I think there's another part of it, though, is you as an astrologer, you are going to attract people who in some way reflect whether it's an expertise or a path that you've walked already. So I had already lived through several Pluto transits that led me to this, knowing that this was my journey, this is my path. But Pluto is one of those transits that is associated with challenging time. And yes, I have seen many people come to astrology, whether for a reading or to a practice of astrology, as a result of a Pluto transit, sometimes a Uranus transit, sometimes a Neptune transit, but those outer planet transits can be very powerful to help people to find some sense of wisdom in what otherwise can feel quite chaotic.
Can I say something too?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is the beauty of the difficult time. Like, this is kind of one of the themes that we've been talking about through this whole panel, right? It started off with the karmic burden, and we've been addressing this again and again. And also just with the whole theme of like, this is a tense time. What's this all about? This is the beauty of going through a tense time. Like, I'm not big into bodybuilding or anything, but isn't that how you bodybuild? You got to pick up those heavy things and rip your muscles, and then they heal themselves. So that's the beauty of a difficult time, is that it pushes you to change something. To change them, to figure out what you're not quite getting right yet, where you're not quite harmonized, where you're not quite in tune. So we should not like run away from difficult stuff. We should like say, hey, where's the difficult stuff? Bring me some of that difficult stuff, because I want to get better today. I want to improve. So for me, like, my life has just been a string of difficult things. And some of the best changes in my life have been at those very difficult moments. In fact, I got into astrology when I was having a difficult time with my previous career. You know, I was boring as hell. I didn't want to keep doing it. And then I even got into this thing of like, how do you use a tropical zodiac with the sidereal nakshatras? I even got into that as a result of something really difficult that happened, and trying to, why could I not have predicted that with the system that I was previously using? So all kinds of like mistakes and problems push us to change something. That's why pain exists. If there was no such thing as pain, then you would have your hand on the stove and you wouldn't even know it. So that's why pain exists, to tell you, hey, get your hand off the stove quick. That's all.
I would also, I just want to quickly add, to affirm what Vic just said. I think that with astrology, actually, you can make what could otherwise be really challenging a lot easier on yourself. Like if you know, okay, I'm going through this, it just helps you to surrender that much more. If you know that, okay, here's a tough transit of Saturn, for example, I probably won't manifest what I'm hoping to right now, but if I put in the work, it will manifest eventually in time. It just helps you that much more to live more in the present moment. For me personally, I found just understanding where there are moments to surrender and where there are moments to pursue. It helps so much in just being able to be in the present moment that much more. And it makes what otherwise could be really tough that much easier.
Yes, and I think it also can help people realize that they're not alone. So if it's, you know, a transit that we're going through collectively, it just helps you realize, oh, this is happening in my life, but it's actually happening in a lot of people's lives, and I'm not alone, and I'm not going crazy. And I think too, it's like that eagle's eye perspective that helps you realize where the gifts might be for you in a certain challenging experience that you're going through. And then also how long that challenging time is going to last. You know, are you at the very beginning of it? Are you at the end of it? Are you right in the thick of it, in the middle of it? So, so many gifts that having a reading done or learning how to read yourself can give you. Ron, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, what I would say is from my first reading, I got tons of confirmation about what I'd already been discovering in my particular way of exploring self. I'd been doing it for 20 years, and I knew so many things about my tendencies and patterns, wounded feelings, beliefs, defenses, and I was baffled that my natal imprint, which is what that initial chart is, where the planets were when you were born, my natal imprint affirmed the setup of my soul curriculum for the lifetime. And I'd been exploring it, and it made me thrilled to explore further into astrology. And as far as a place to start, go with what your heart says about all of the people, but I want to affirm also the course that Amanda mentioned. Donna Woodwell is a stunning, practical, loving, nurturing presence to start, as well as any of the readings that you want to do with the other astrologers who are a part of the summit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The course that they're referring to is called Decode Your Cosmic Blueprint, and it is our foundational course for chart reading. And really, one of the main intentions behind it is giving you all the tools and that foundation that you need so that you can go into any discipline of astrology that you want. So it'll enable you to go down any path that is really interesting to you. You'll have all the tools and that really solid core so that you can just explore, which the more you get into astrology, you realize there's many, many different paths to go down. And when you get this foundation, you'll realize you don't have a bunch of holes in your understanding. You have that foundation, and you can take it further in any direction that you want. Okay, we're at our time. It's amazing how this hour just flies. I wanted to just give each of you an opportunity to leave the audience with something. So is there anything that you would like to leave everybody with here tonight or morning, depending on where you are in the world?
I'm happy to jump in first if you like. I think that we're in a time of so much acceleration, particularly since the year 2012. Things have gone into a hyperdrive. So many planetary events, rare configurations, etc. But it's stirring people's stuff up so much. The familiar comfort zone is so interrupted. And so get gorgeous information and tools to understand what you're negotiating, and find somewhere that you feel will give you nurturing tools to respond and resolve. And if you don't have somewhere specific you know of, please seek me out as an example of someone who has dedicated his life to nurturing people all around the world. But show up for yourself and know that healing resolution is entirely possible.
Very nice. Okay. Nadiya or Vic?
I will say that earlier, Amanda, just a little while ago, you said how astrology helps you to realize that you're not alone in whatever you're feeling. And the thing that came into my mind when you said that was, well, no, you have the love of the planets and the stars. You have your interconnection with everyone and everything with you always. And I think that that is one of the most beautiful things about astrology. That's part of why I love it so much and why I feel so dedicated to it as a vehicle to share what I believe I'm meant to share in this life, which has to do with reminding people of the energy of love and wisdom, to choose that as much as possible, and the other values I hold of hope and inspiration. But I think that that is very powerful in terms of realization that there is this divine tapestry playing out at all times and that you are a part of it. And in that way, you are not alone. And whatever may be happening in your chart, whether it's easy, whether it's challenging, there is something there that you can use to move yourself forward. And sometimes you find it in the moment. Sometimes you find it on the other side, but ultimately everything that is happening in your chart and in the sky is to help you to become a more conscious, more loving, and more wise person.
Thank you for that.
My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Is it my turn? Yeah. So in the beginning, you said that you like that quote from me, like knowledge is the most important thing to act on. So it's like, then astrology. So then what would be the most important type of knowledge to get? Because it's knowledge about the actor. The most important kind of knowledge to get, to act on, is the knowledge of yourself. Because you're the one that's doing all your actions. And then there's so many different disciplines. You know, throughout the ages, people have come up with so many ways to help us know ourselves. Especially India is really, really, really into that. And then, it's not just India, but the whole world has come up with this whole system of astrology. It's a very great tool for what I guess might be one of the new meanings or interpretations of mirroring, being able to look at something and see yourself. You know, the chart itself is a mirror. You look at that chart and, oh my God, that's what I look like. And the thing that I really got from what Nadiya today, I think this will be like the one takeaway thing, is like, she said something like, let's interpret this stuff in a useful way. It's a question of interpretation, right? So when you're going to look at that mirror, let's interpret this knowledge of, and Ron, you're saying the same thing. When you look deep into your eyes, you have to make sure that you do that with the promise to yourself that I'm going to embrace what I find in there. So it's the same thing when you look at this chart, you have to think, all right. And you see that poster right behind Nadiya where it says the universe is wise and loving, right? That's beautiful. That's the truth. The universe is kind. The universe is a mother. She's kind. She's beautiful. She's loving. She's going to help us. She's also the one who's punishing the bad kids. But don't think that means that somebody hates you, or don't think that means that something is going wrong. It's just the mother is trying to say, hey, baby, just go this way. Stop doing that. It's not good for you. So we can look at that mirror and we can say, God, I have that freckle in that spot that I don't want that freckle to be. But you know what? I'm just going to appreciate my eyelashes more, or whatever it is. Or I'm going to move this way, or I'm going to change it, or I'm going to dance this way because I got a bad D. I'll dance this other style. So that's what I think Nadiya was also talking about too, is you get this knowledge of astrology. You get the knowledge from astrology that actually helps you face the difficult problems. You know, the challenges, the difficult stuff becomes so much easier when you get that knowledge. That astrology, which is not the only way that you can get it, but it's a very useful way, and especially for some people, it really speaks to them. So I feel really grateful to be a part of everybody today. Thank you.
I'm so grateful to be a part of it as well, and I'm sure the audience also feels grateful that we've all been able to be here together for this hour. You three are amazing. The energy feels so good. Thank you so much for all your contributions. And you're right, this idea of having the knowledge and then choosing how we respond to things. One of the things Ron said is, when something happens that's triggering for us, what does that reveal to me about me, and who do I choose to be? So all of you basically sending the same message to us tonight, and a lot for us to sit with. So thank you very, very much. If you haven't had a chance to check out their 3 talks, please do so. They are available for you through tomorrow. If you are finding that you're falling behind on the summit and you want to tune into the talks that you've missed, please consider the upgrade package. This will give you lifetime access to all of the talks in 3 different formats: video, audio, and transcript. So you can listen on the go, you can revisit ideas. All of the talks end with a practice, something that you can use to actually embody the ideas that they're talking about. We wanted to make sure that this wasn't just a philosophical conversation, that you could walk away from it saying, okay, like I'm empowered to actually do something with this information. So every talk is geared towards that and ends with some very practical advice that you can use, a practice, a meditation, a tool that you can implement in your life. You will also have lifetime access to all of the bonus gifts. So there's 23 incredible bonus gifts that you will be able to download at your own time and again, revisit over and over. So please check out the upgrade package. It's available to you now at the event price of $97. After the event, it's going to go to $197. So get your 50% discount and purchase that now. All right, and then I also wanted to let you know about tomorrow. Tomorrow is a very, very like power-packed day. We have 3 really, really strong talks and presentations from very interesting and diverse backgrounds. We have Teal Swan, who is an internationally known spiritual teacher. She is talking about how to get off the self-help hamster wheel and tune into source energy. And I always love like people like Ron and Teal, who are not astrologers, but who are more what I would call a spiritual teacher or a spiritual leader. And they're using astrology in a very tangible and practical way in their teachings, in their coaching, in their practice. So Teal is one of those. It's really, really awesome to hear her talk about astrology and how she uses it to facilitate and support people in their shadow work. So check that one out. We have David Cochran, who is, any of you who have been around astrology for a while know of David Cochran. Actually, if you've been in the astrological community at all, you know of David Cochran. He is talking on the spiritual nature of astrology. He's also the one who gave you the free gift that you got upon registration. So his talk is really, really wonderful. Check that out tomorrow. And then Nadiya Smirnova-Moreau, who is a nuclear physicist and astrologer, and she is really bringing in the science behind why, you know, these a lot of these, they seem philosophical or religious or spiritual concepts like we are all one. She explains that so beautifully from a scientific perspective, so you're going to love that. Her talk is entitled Quantum Entanglement, Astrology and Consciousness, a Deep Understanding of the Big Picture. We are all one, Physics of Non-Physical Phenomena. It sounds really complicated, but she does such a great job of, there's visuals, and she speaks to it in a way that I believe anyone would understand. So it's really, really great. Check those out. Those are going to be available tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific time. And then we're going to have those 3 speakers on a panel. It's actually going to be David and Nadiya first, and then Teal's going to come after. So check that out. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern for the live Q&A panel tomorrow. Remember, it's not too late to register. If you have friends and family that you think would like to join the event, please either forward this video or send them the link, summit.astrologyhub.com. They'll still be able to catch yesterday's, today's, tomorrow's, and Saturday's talks, which is just, there's so much magic in those. So they have not missed. They will actually get to benefit from the event still. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you, Vic. Thank you, Nadiya. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, audience. It is so wonderful to be here with you. And thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.